Welcome on into GoldSheet TV. Today we're discussing some Week 2 NFL action. If you missed Tuesday's episode, Newbie and I broke down some reactions from Week 1 as well as Thursday Night Football. So you're probably seeing this after Thursday Night Football. We'll be discussing all games for Sunday and Monday. Newbie, I think we don't hesitate. I think we get right into this bad boy. First game we're looking at, Los Angeles Chargers headed to Tennessee to take on the Titans. I'm going to come out and say it right here. I am on the Tennessee Titans in this matchup. I was able to find plus 3.5 at minus 120, which is it was technically an alt line. It would be considered buying the half point. I want to just make this point here while I have it, that there is value in getting that half point, but it all depends on the price. Plus 3 minus 110 is equal to plus 3.5 minus 125. So if you're able to find a plus 3.5, at that plus 125 or lower number, that is a much better bet than taking just the plus 3 at a plus 110 or a minus 110 or a minus 105, because obviously 3 is a key number in the NFL, and that half point is the difference between pushing and losing, with 3 being the most common margin of victory in the National Football League. So with that being said, you can't go over the minus 125, and I am backing the Titans at the number at plus 3.5. Before I go into my reasoning why, Newbie, is this a game that you have any opinion on, or are you kind of more curious as to just how I'm attacking this one?
No, it's definitely not one that I've bet myself, but as far as, I talked about this season-long contest that I do where you have to pick every game against the spread. This is definitely the side that I'm going to be with as well. It's not going to be anything that's on my betting card, but I'm with you, man, and I'm looking forward to hearing why you lean this way, because for me, I just look at the fact that we're getting points with Mike Vrabel against a team who just got driven up and down the field. Really, the issue for Tennessee was they couldn't get much consistency in the passing game, but I'm getting points with Mike Vrabel at home as an underdog in his career. Mike Vrabel 26-16-1 against the number. You don't have to talk me twice into getting the better coach getting points against a team that really doesn't play much defense. I'm with you here, man, and especially getting that hook. It makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah, so you're kind of taking the words right out of my mouth. So just going from a power ratings perspective, I have this game closer to a 1.5 point matchup in the first place. So obviously I would be comfortable with the 3, but like I mentioned in the outline, the 3.5 is obviously much more valuable. But the head coaching matchup is something that just cannot go under the radar. And while Brandon Staley's defense toward the end of last season was actually pretty good, obviously it's time for that meltdown they had against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but Staley, defensive-minded head coach, came in to bring some spunk in to actually make this defense good, has failed to date, but did some good things for the end of last season. As we saw in Week 1, Mike McDaniel put on an absolute clinic against him, and that is a team that was familiar with him as they did play one time last season. So it's not like the Chargers won that game and they stifled Tua, and that was the matchup where, that was something that they were familiar with. Now, the Chargers, Justin Herbert had a good outing. They were playing a Vic Fangio defense, which means that they were not going to allow them to get beaten over the top. And, I would expect Mike Vrabel to do something similar to that in this matchup, not let Justin Herbert throw the ball deep down the field and keep things short. But something that I think the Titans have a bigger edge on than Miami had that's going to stifle the Chargers more is that Los Angeles was actually able to run the ball on Miami pretty well. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball on Tennessee whatsoever. The Titans have always had one of the best rush defenses in the National Football League, and then I don't expect this year to be any different. And coming into this season now, obviously we're still in Week 2, so we still have to use some of our prior convictions. If you listen to any of our shows in the preseason and the offseason, you know that I am bullish on the Titans, and by bullish, I'm talking 9-win team. I'm not talking about a Super Bowl contender, but I do think that they're a playoff team. And after last season, these teams played tight. The Titans lost the game 17-14. I know Tannehill threw 3 picks, but he did not play in the preseason, so I wanted to give him a pass on that matchup. That when you have a head coaching matchup like this and a defense that the Titans look to be not just like a good unit, but like a great unit, I just don't see Justin Herbert picking apart this team as many, I feel like, pundits do. And not trying to throw shade or anything here, but I've seen so many people just instantaneously land the points for the Chargers. That makes me feel better about back in Tennessee in this spot.
Yeah, it's definitely getting no disagreement from me on this one, man. The 3.5 makes a heck of a lot of sense, and the more that I hear you talk about it, the more that I want to add it to my official betting card. So definitely no disagreement out of me on this one, man. Tennessee plus the 3.5. Love the pick.
Yeah, that's something that is up on WagerTalk for the GoldSheet plays. We're going to have a bunch of other things in here. We're going to talk some leans and other things we like, but that is actually a client play here. So we are on the Tennessee Titans plus the 3.5. Looking at another matchup, so another team that I'm down on this year against the Kansas City Chiefs. We have the Chiefs headed to Jacksonville to play. Of course, we have the news now that Chris Jones, holdout's over. They got a little bit of a deal done. Travis Kelce, I did not see any official news, newbie, not sure if you did, but it seems like regardless, you're honing in on the Kansas City Chiefs. Talk to me as to why you think that this is a spot for the Chiefs to, I guess, be undervalued, laying just 2.5 to 3.5, depending where you look on the Jaguars.
Yeah, we're recording here on a Thursday morning, so definitely keep your eyes peeled to see if Kelce will, in fact, be active for this game. But he and Chris Jones were on the practice field on Wednesday for the Kansas City Chiefs, which is a good sign. And here, for me, man, like the Chiefs are not going to go 0-2. Like, I know that it's you take the trends out of it, take the spread out of it, take all of it out. I don't see the Chiefs starting this year after being Super Bowl favorites 0-2. And it's looking like, as I mentioned, both of these players are progressing nicely in Kelce and in Jones. And honestly, like the drum that you've been beating, this Jacksonville team, I'm not going to say that they're not good, but they're not as good as the market perceives them to be, and especially as the talking heads perceive them to be. They barely get out of Indianapolis with a win. You could argue they definitely would have gotten the cover if it weren't for a Richardson injury late. And then I just look at this Chiefs team, ultra motivated, and they get the extra rest. And there's the element of Doug Peterson playing against Andy Reid, his former mentor, and that has not worked well for Doug Peterson, whether he's wearing an Eagles uniform or a Jacksonville Jaguars uniform. I think the Chiefs in this one probably looking to get that stink of what happened on opening night off early. And also just formulaically, Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence and with Doug Peterson typically starts slow in first halves. And that's really where we see Trevor Lawrence struggle. That's where we see the interceptions rack up. So while I would definitely lay it for the full game with the Chiefs, I think they get at least a touchdown win going on the highway as a road favorite here against Jacksonville. I would definitely take them the full game, but I'm also taking them the first half. I think they jump on them early. If it does get a little bit tighter, I see it happening in the second half. And last thing I have on this one is, it hasn't been great for the Chiefs when they've been home favorites. That played itself out last Thursday. But as far as when they're laying chalk on the road, Andy Reid gets these guys ready to go. It's a smaller number, but it's 31-24 against the number as away favorites. And when I only see a little bit of a difference there, I like looking towards that margin of victory. They win those games on an average of 9 points a game when they go on the road and they're favorites. I think a lot adds up. Probably a play that's a little bit square, but I'm laying it with the Chiefs here as they're taking on the Jags.
The thing is, at this point, right, I think that there are honestly probably just more Chiefs haters than there are anything else at this point because of the fact that, now Mahomes is going to try to turn to that Tom Brady-esque figure where, you can't stop winning, that, people are eventually going to start hating him and then probably love him at the end of his career. But, we have hopefully at least 10 more years to see that transpire. But I'm with you here, and this is a game that I was like kind of flip-flopped on to start. So when I looked at it initially with the 2.5, I was kind of thinking like, obviously that number kind of anticipated no Chris Jones, no Travis Kelce, just the Chiefs laying 2.5. But going back to my comment there, the Jaguars at this point, I feel like are sort of a public darling now. Everybody thinks that they've discovered gold now, that Trevor Lawrence is so good. Like, yeah, you watch football, Trevor Lawrence is so good, right? You watched him in high school, you knew that this kid was going to be so good.
True.
So there were those times where there was like, I want to say like unkept secrets, right? That like now everybody, the cat's out of the bag, and everybody thinks that they are right and geniuses for thinking these things. Going to this matchup, so that's why I was like thinking, okay, maybe 2.5, maybe the Chiefs are the square side because, it's only 2.5 points. We're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think that more people will be backing Jacksonville here and not making my handicap solely based on what I think the public's doing or anything like that. But this is just a classic example of like getting the best line. Like if you bet Kansas City Monday or Tuesday, you probably got a 2.5. You bet it Tuesday afternoon or early Wednesday, you probably got a 3. So now you're in push territory. And now you can't really be laying the 3.5. I mean, of course you can, but that obviously opens you up to the loss on the spread of the final total of 3 points. Thinking about this game, I think you made a bunch of good points, and this is a situation where initially I did lean Jacksonville because, this is a motivation game for them. The Chiefs blew them out once last year, and the Jaguars actually played them pretty closely in the playoffs last year. That was not really a big deficit. They lost by 7. Pretty close game. You could assume that the Jacksonville Jaguars have had this game circled all summer long because they want this revenge and want to prove that they are in the upper echelon of teams in the National Football League. But if you listen to anything I've said so far, I could easily be wrong, and I'll gladly admit if I'm wrong, but I don't think the Jaguars are there. Now, obviously, I think Kelsey would be huge for the Chiefs. I have not seen the news, so if he's already ruled out, then, we'll live and hopefully Kadarius Toney put some stickum on his hands this week. But I just don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars are at this level, and I wish that I got in. If I did get in the 2.5, I'm honestly debating just laying the money line if it's around -170, because I do think the Chiefs win this game more than 2 out of 3 times if they do play. But yeah, Newbie, I'm with you. I think that Jacksonville is not up to par with this Kansas City Chiefs team, and they're being priced like, 3 points, like it's a pretty close spread. Yep. I really don't think they're there yet, even if this game probably, end of the day, means more to them than it does to the Chiefs in terms of internal motivation.
Yeah, and to your point, again, getting it at the worst of the number at 3.5 isn't ideal. That's maybe why I would just go for that first half, get at under the field goal. Kansas City leading at halftime. That's sitting at 2.5. And also, if you even look at that line, you would typically think with it sitting at 3.5, they usually split that in half. So the fact that they're -2.5 in the first half tells me that there's some people who are looking the same way that I am. And it's some of those people who bet with duffel bags when they're betting. So that Kansas City first half, I think is a pretty good look getting that under a field goal.
And again, just don't let the box scores fool you. If you watch the game, you saw Kadarius Toney, the ball hit his hands and then went into the defender's hands.
And that's the thing. Is if he catches that ball, he walks into the end zone, and we're talking about a much different spread here. We're talking about the Chiefs who are coming off of a win and had a sloppy game one, whatever. I'm right there with you, man. Kadarius Toney and the lack of receiving options that they had was the reason that they lost that game. As much as people are going to spin it as the Lions, oh my God, the Lions. Man, I'm with you. Just catch the ball, and Chiefs are walking in here 1-0.
100%. And this is, again, what we talked about on Tuesday's show. If you missed it, still definitely worthwhile. Huge. We talked about a lot of great topics, so definitely catch it. But we'll summarize one quick point. Week 2 is the overreaction to underreaction week. Yep. The market, even square bettors and even sharp bettors, just the market in general, is just reacting to what they saw and is putting out lines based on what transpired. But you can't just look at the box score to see what transpired. You either have to watch film or, listen to people that you think are sharper than you, or go about it in different ways, because this is, I don't want to say a misleading week, because anything can happen in any given week in the National Football League. But you need to think of things more so than just, the Chiefs lost, the Jaguars won by 10, Jaguars +3. Like, that's obviously that's not how it goes in betting the National Football League. But something that I discussed on a solo show on WagerTalk TV and GoldSheet TV, I went over some teaser options for this week. This one missed my card for something that I loved, and I have a position that I like in this game, and you have a teaser leg that you like in this leg. We're talking Green Bay heading to Atlanta, take on the Falcons. I'll start with you, Newbie. What are you looking at from a teaser perspective here? Because this line, it opened at Atlanta minus laying the 1. Pretty quickly flipped to Green Bay now laying the 1. If you can get a 1.5 and getting to tease that up to 7.5 in a traditional fashion, that's obviously a way to go about it. 6.5 point teasers with a -130 still have some value, so not something to completely shy away from. But are you taking Atlanta here because you think that this game is just should be close, so it has a low total, so you should, or just like what is kind of pointing you in the direction of like give me just points in this matchup?
Yeah, I think, and especially before a lot of lines moved this week, like this was a teaser's paradise this week, getting a lot of teams going through the key numbers of or going through the key numbers of 7 and 3, excuse me. And yes, while a lot of people get turned off by that extra juice you have to lay, it's still a nice bet on a 6.5-point teaser, paying that extra 10 cents and getting a team that was favored on openers all the way up to getting them at 7.5, I think makes a lot of sense because yes, the Packers, they won, they covered, they really dominated the Bears, but that's what the Packers do. They dominate the Bears. I mean, it's just whether it's Aaron Rodgers or no Aaron Rodgers, I got some egg on my face saying this was a good spot for him. Sure, it was just a lean, but this was a head-to-head, and I guess I'm going and hitting the bell of fading Green Bay again. I think they do win the game, but honestly, I was pleasantly surprised with how Desmond Ridder looked. I don't think he's going to win you many games, but he didn't look awful. And really, with what Atlanta wants to do offensively is just have ball control, is just run the ball and keep the ball out of the hands of their opponents, whether it's Jordan Love at quarterback or whatever quarterback they're playing. It's just how they play. Even when they're down in games, they're still running the ball. Atlanta is a run-first team through and through. And I look at that Green Bay game, and you look at the box score. If you just check that out, it pops your eyes out and say, oh my goodness, this is a dominant team. Defense is great. Defense did have a pick 6 in that game. So I think that has a little bit of a luck factor to it. And if you take that pick 6 out of it, you're looking at a little bit tighter of a game. So if we're looking at a tighter of a game and a team that I think is pleasantly surprised, and I think we're still going to be getting some value moving forward on the Atlanta Falcons, I'll take that up to 7.5, getting them in a teaser leg. I'll talk about who I'll be pairing that with, but I think at home, they can keep this definitely within a touchdown. So if I get that extra hook and they can lose by 7 and we still cash this with 6.5 points, I have to put that as a teaser leg. It just makes too much sense. And with this low total, points I think are going to be at a premium.
Yeah, so I can't disagree with taking an advantage teaser on a game with a low total, with the home team getting over a touchdown. I can't disagree with that by any means. Coming to this football game though, and again, maybe in this situation, you have to kind of like question yourself a little bit if like you're personally overreacting or underreacting to things. Like for example, Jaguars. True. I think the market themselves and some public bettors are overreacting to the Jaguars win and the Chiefs loss, and the same case for this situation because I think that the Green Bay Packers are a much better football team. The reason why I'm going with this is I watched that Falcons-Panthers game pretty closely this past weekend, and you look at the turnovers, they forced 3 turnovers, which obviously, is a high variance thing in football, and you can't rely on winning the turnover battle and forcing turnovers every week, though it obviously is a huge benefit. 2 of those interceptions from Jesse Bates, the safety for the Falcons, veteran, great player, it's not a big deal. He basically kind of like lulled Bryce Young to sleep, kind of made him focus in on one target and then jumped the route. So he clearly saw something in what this rookie passer was doing and was able to capitalize on that. Now, I'm not going to say not that Jordan Love has a plethora of more experience than Bryce Young. He's obviously not a rookie, but he's been in buildings, but he hasn't really made that many starts. But I don't think that they're going to this Falcons defense is good enough to be consistently forcing those turnovers the way that they did against the Panthers. And yeah, they're going to run the football. Like that's just what it is. Like they only threw the ball 18 times in that matchup. They held the lead for a vast majority of the second half, so they didn't need to throw the ball whatsoever. But it couldn't be made more abundantly clear when you have Kyle Pitts and Drake London, 2 guys that I think all 31 other teams would probably kill for, receive just 4 targets between the 2 of them, which is. It is what it is. Like I'm not going to question Arthur Smith and say I know more football than him. But long story short here, I just think you're simply getting the better team. Green Bay Packers offense, yes, they beat up a bad Bears team, but I'm not ready to say that this Falcons team is as good as they looked, again, in the box score, because if Bryce Young doesn't make these kind of mistakes, this game is closer than a 10-point game. And taking a rookie quarterback in his first start was great, but Jordan Love, I think, is going to be able to throw the football on this team. The Packers are going to be able to run the football on this team. These are 2 teams that do rely on the run. And I think that while Green Bay's run defense has been a problem, I'm not just so sure that they're going to just be running the football down their throat. So I love your look on the teaser, but push comes to shove, I think the Green Bay Packers win this game outright.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm no money line sprinkles for me here. I'm taking the teaser. I'm taking the 6.5, and I also think it's an indication of backing up the way that you're looking at it. The fact, that this is a teaser that to get through that key number of 7, you have to pay an extra 30 cents a juice. So I'm definitely not making a case for Atlanta winning this game outright. And again, with my Matt LaFleur head coach of the year ticket, I don't want them to win outright. Let's keep the Green Bay train running, but let's keep it running under a touchdown. How about that?
With my Packers, NFC North and playoffs, let's go Pack. And like I declared on the last show, cash that ticket, baby. Let's go Green Bay. I'll give me your cheesehead. Another game with a good look for a teaser. I've seen it go on here and there, talking Colts, Texans. Talk to me. There's only one way to tease this game as long as the home team is getting 1.5 points. If one team's getting the 1.5 points, you're teasing up that team. Why are you liking the Texans? And just before you get into it, I was talking about this game in my angle on WagerTalk today with Teddy Covers and Prez. Great conversation. And my stance has changed a little bit on CJ Stroud after watching some film on him.
Yeah.
I think he actually played pretty well. So
agreed.
Convince me even more as to why I should probably like the Texans here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think right automatically people look at the win total for this team, and we're allowing the perception of the Texans to creep in when talking about and handicapping this team. Because yes, I bet against them in week 1. I laid the number, the market moved against me, and we still cashed the ticket with the Ravens. But the thing was, a lot of that had more to do with the Ravens just getting enough done to finally push it over that number. It wasn't like they dominated the box score by any stretch of the imagination. Texans were able to bottle up Lamar Jackson. He didn't look great. And this Texans team now playing against a division rival as a home underdog. Richardson's going to be banged up if he does play. Sure, Gardner Minshew probably won't be much of a downgrade at this point in Richardson's career if he does go. But this low total at 40, and I can take them up over a touchdown at home against the division rival. Like I said, it wasn't like the Ravens rolled all over them. They just ran out of steam, did the Texans. CJ Stroud looked better than that final score would indicate. That injury for Richardson with the low total, points are ultimately valuable. So this may be the most disgusting teaser we'll have all summer long, or all season long, excuse me. But Atlanta up, Houston up. I'm doing it for my man Robert, the producer, who does a terrific job here. H-Town, let's get it. Houston up and Atlanta up. That's the teaser for me here.
Yeah, and I can't really talk you out of it. Again, if you're talking advantage legs anyway, that's just that's the formula to go about it. So no disagreements from me. My just initial look on this game is just taking the under, right? You have a team two teams that when they play together, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. These teams play each other very closely. Like 8 out of the last 10 meetings have gone under. Again, not prefacing this based on a trend, but considering that you do have 2 rookie quarterbacks, 2 rookie head coaches, one of them being DeMeco Ryans, who has been a long-time NFL player, defensive coordinator for the Niners, and now he took over this defense that low-key was 18th in EPA per play last season, right? Like this wasn't as bad as they were on the ground. As an overall unit, this defense wasn't terrible. Then they added a bunch of veterans and some other young rookies to the mix. So this defense, like you said, they held their own against the Ravens. And like while the Ravens ended up the final score is misleading, the Ravens are a good football team. The fact that they played well against a good football team is even though week 1 they had all summer to prepare, is still an encouraging sign. But just given the 2 ways that these teams are going to run, like CJ Stroud, again, his arm looked alive. And if this becomes a gunslinging fest between Stroud and Richardson, again, I'll put my hand up and say, I got this one wrong. But I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here because I like the under for, again, a number of reasons. Defenses are both relatively good. You have young passers. You have 2 defensive lines that can get a decent amount of pressure, 2 teams that want to run the football. All those things lead to ticking clock and low scoring. I was doing some breakdowns, and this full video will be out on WagerTalk TV and GoldSheet TV later today of anytime touchdown scores. Even with a low total like this, newbie, I love Anthony Richardson to score a touchdown. He's plus 170, and obviously he scored last week, but this is a situation where I don't think he'll ever be plus 170 again because he ran a straight QB power when he was in the end zone last week. In the red zone trips that he played, he had 4 of the 8 rushing attempts for the Colts in the red zone. And Shane Steichen, head coach of the Colts, came from the Philadelphia Eagles, and they ran all these plays with Jalen Hurts in the end zone. And Deion Jackson, one of the worst running backs in the NFL last week from an EPA perspective. And who else are they going to give the football to? Like Anthony Richardson looks like Cam Newton in the sense of look at his build. Like he's a Josh Allen, Cam Newton type of build.
Agreed.
So you're going to run a QB power. Give it to Anthony Richardson. Like, why are you going to give the ball to Deion Jackson when you could put, like they did? They had the two guys next to him. They basically built a wall and ran forward. So plus 170, even with the game of a low total. It's, again, going to be contradictory. Maybe you would get some crazy odds on the same game parlay. Not saying you do it. Texans 7.5, under 40.5. Richardson touchdown. I would love to see what that non-correlated payout would look like. But that's kind of how I'm looking at this game. Nothing official. Didn't play the under. But Richardson will be played at plus 170. I think that, again, you're never going to see it at plus 170 if he has the script I want. And cherry on top, Texans allowed the most rushing TDs in the red zone to any team. Richardson is their runner. He's their goal line back.
Yeah. Like what are they going to do at the goal line? They're going to turn around and hand the ball off to Zach Moss. No, it's not happening. And I'm right there with you, man. And he should have gotten in. It was such a shame to see the injury at the end of the game for Richardson. I think even if he's a little bit hobbled, I'm with you, man. Like this is his game. And the comparison to Cam Newton, couldn't agree more. I was very impressed as a guy who wasn't really high on Richardson. I was very pleasantly surprised with what we saw out of him. I think if he develops nicely, and I think he has a great head coach to help him do it, and Shane Steichen, he's going to be a problem moving forward. He's gonna vault up DFS lineups. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, and again, I said initially that I didn't think Stroud played that well because look at even the advanced numbers weren't like great.
Yeah,
but again,
but when you watch the actual tape, I'm with you.
Yeah, considering who he was playing and circumstances whatsoever, first NFL start, like he definitely did some very nice things. So I think again, defense will prevail. Definitely love seeing the Texans in a teaser, and I think Richardson could hit the end zone. But last but not least, we're going to Monday Night Football, the team that destroyed me last weekend. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns. I'm going to simply say, quick right out of the gate, killed me last week, but I'm going to take the Steelers in a teaser with somebody, probably maybe Buffalo. Missed the number on Dallas, maybe the Rams, but the Steelers look like a juicy teaser leg. Now, Cam Hayward officially announced out for a little bit. At Cam Hayward, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the EPA per play on defense is astonishingly different with and without him on the field. Obviously, much better with him on the field. Newbie, talk to me about these Pittsburgh Steelers. Where's your initial thoughts at? Because I'm just thinking 8.5 points, division game, Browns at home against the Steelers at home against the Browns. Give me 8.5 points all day without even thinking twice.
Yeah, I guess this edition of the Gold Sheet is brought to you by Tums and Antacid everywhere because we got some ugly dogs that we're making cases for here, man. But I'm right there with you. I love them in a teaser. Getting that 8.5 points is a no-brainer. And when you're talking about teaser legs, how we're talking this is a week, you still have Bills, Bears, Niners, Washington, Patriots, Panthers, Steelers, and Texans like we were talking about, all potential teaser options, depending if you're able to shop around. You got to go through those key numbers if you're going to be betting them. But I don't even need the 6 points in this one. I know that it bit us in the ass last week doing the old Tomlin as a home dog trend bit, but plus 2.5, Monday Night Football, divisional game, features to have some better weather. I think that had a lot to do with Kenny Pickett's hand size and the struggles they had. Sure, they're going to be without Deontay Johnson, but I think, that just opens up Pickens for some potential more opportunity there. It also doesn't feature this game, won't be featuring the 49ers, who look early like one of the best, if not the best team in the NFL. So the Steelers will be glad to not be looking across the sideline at gold helmets. They'll be looking at this strange shade that the Browns stick with of the orange. I got this one from the Gold Sheet, man. Pittsburgh, 19 of their last 20 home games against the Browns, straight up, they've won them. And now we're getting an 0-1 team in division against a 1-0 team. I also have one more for you here, just as far as taking the case for the Pittsburgh Steelers, plus the 2.5, leaving the teaser leg at the door, even though I absolutely love it and will have it. This one from Ralph Michaels. You can follow him on Twitter at CalSportsLV. You can see him on Bet On It. Since 2017, teams who lost at home as an underdog in week 1, week 2, 15-8. And I feel like that becomes even stronger as the Steelers get to stay home. They get to talk about and look at how embarrassed they were at home. I'd also be remiss if we didn't mention the fact this is Monday Night Football. Mike Tomlin, 19-3 straight up on Monday Night Football. I love the Steelers this week. It's going to make your stomach hurt, but I wouldn't be shocked if they win the game outright, Eric.
Yeah, and again, no disagreements for me. Not even devil's advocate for me in this situation. The one thing I guess I will just point to is the Cam Hayward thing. Like, numbers do not lie. Like, he is a crucial part of the defense. So you hate that. Thankfully, TJ Watt is healthy, so that obviously is a big piece. If I were to play devil's advocate, like maybe it's Jim Schwartz's new defensive philosophy will stifle Pickett, but maybe because that defensive line on Cleveland, they proved. I know not like Cincy's offensive line is anything to write home about, but they proved that defensive line is as advertised, and we saw how the 49ers defensive line disrupted the hell out of everything Pittsburgh tried to do, and it's something that we didn't talk about, and this is our bad completely in any of these two shows, is the weather. The weather last week. Some of these games were played in monsoons at
horrible
points. Like
monsoons, man, it was ridiculous.
Exactly. So that's something that needs to be factored into certain situations. Like that is a huge thing. Like that, like the rain, like slippery football, like not talking about a little bit of a drizzle on a nice spring day. We're talking about like pretty heavy weather. It's a little bit too late to discuss that now, but just things to keep in the back of your mind when you're looking at some of these box scores, which is why we always, and sports books know what happened in the box score. They also know what happened in the advanced stats. So you got to at least peel back the onion a little bit when you're taking a look at these. But look at some situations, be like, was this a bad throw because this guy sucks? Or was it torrentially downpouring? And, it's very hard for even the best of the best to throw a football in the torrentially downpouring weather.
Look no further than what Joe Burrow did in that downpour, man. Like that is one of the if you are selling on the Bengals offense because of what happened in week 1, sell it to me because I'll buy all the Bengals stock. Joe Burrow is not what he looked like in week 1. That's for sure. So I couldn't agree more. I'm glad that you mentioned this at least at the tail end because what totals ended up like nearly 3/4 of the games went under. Yeah, so the fact that that's now ticked down, the sports books have adjusted, and the sports books don't get burnt every week like that. So just think about that in mind when you're looking at a lot of these low total games. That weather will not be a factor, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and this one again, back to the teaser, 38.5 total. So getting a team plus 8.5, you're almost all the way at the total with that 8.5 points right there.
And but this is the AFC North, man. That it is always slobber knockers in the AFC North.
Yes, sir. Yes, it always is. So again, Newbie and I both looking like Pittsburgh in the teaser, and Newbie even says Steelers probably going to win this football game. But a quick recap again: Tennessee Titans plus 3.5, a GoldSheet play that is in there. KC Jacks. Strong lean for Eric on KC. Newbie says screw a lean. I'm looking at them on the first half and potentially against the spread. If maybe you can find another 3 there. Green Bay, Atlanta. I want to back my Packers like I didn't last week, but that means they're going to lose this week. But Newbie loves the can't speak right now. Sorry. Newbie loves Atlanta in a teaser. Tease that up. Makes sense. Low total. Get that Wong style going there. Houston, Indianapolis. I don't like there to be points, but I do like Richardson to score 6 of them. While Newbie says, again, tease up those ugly Texans. And last but not least, tease up those Pittsburgh Steelers. And, if you're feeling yourself, take a look at them plus the 2.5 straight away right then and there. But that will do it for GoldSheet TV today. Thank you guys all for tuning in. You can find me on Twitter at SlimeAction and Newbie at Newbie Talks. Leave a like and comment who you think is going to win some football games this weekend. Subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow. We appreciate you. Best of luck this weekend.